Hello, you are watching the Academic Forum here on Better Future Production. I am Lamin El Sanyang. Many teenagers, a lot of whom are students, are turning to drugs in an increasingly alarming rate. If this trend continues, what will the future hold for the Gambia? Well, that's our topic for today's discussion. And to help me answer this question, I am joined by the spokesperson of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia. He is Mr. Usman Sediba. Welcome to the Academic Forum, sir. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Before we go into answering the question, what does the future hold for the Gambia and why the teenagers are turning into drugs, can we please establish an understanding on what exactly can or is qualified to be called drug, illicit drugs?
Thank you very much, and also thank you for having us on this forum or this program that is aimed at bringing out issues that affect our youth. With regards to what is a drug, drugs are natural, synthetic, and/or semi-synthetic substances which, when wrongly administered, affect the central nervous system. Others can say these are substances that modify perception, the way people think. But here, we're looking at, we said, the natural that are growing without any man-made assistant. The synthetic, which has to do with these natural herbs, like either the opium poppy that is taken and processed into something else, or semi-synthetic that is a combination of these two. Like, for example, if you look at, let's look at the local context, because we should try to contextualize these issues and look at practical examples. Like for here, you might find, like we say, cannabis, natural grain. Some boys will have the cannabis and then perhaps mix it with cigarettes, say, I'm blending it. That is a typical example. But we say that all this, when taken, because the central nervous system is what controls the human being. As we are here now, you can see the controllers there have a lot of other things that are controlling and coordinating different activities that are taking place. Any functionality issues relating to any of them can affect the output of what is being done here. So the human being also, your brain, your senses, the way you perceive things, the way you smell things, the way you feel things, the way you think about things, to a greater extent define who you are. So, but for our own work, what categorizes what we can enforce is what is provided for in the Drug Control Act 2003. Now, the Drug Control Act is an act of parliament. It is the law that provides for the usage, distribution, control of one, prohibited drugs, controlled drugs, precursor materials, precursor chemicals, and for matters connected therewith. This is an act of parliament. It is a law. And this is clear for people to know because others can understand that it's not just Yahya Jammeh who just got up by himself and then, come up with a law. No. There are treaties and conventions. The 1961 Convention on Narcotic Drugs, that is the single convention. You have the 88 Convention on Psychotropic Substances and the Convention on Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances. These are international treaties and conventions that the Gambia is a signatory to. And some of the outcome of this document is that partner nations or signatories to these conventions have to ratify and domesticate it. And part of the domestication process is for them to have their own laws. Because when you talk about drugs, it's a complex, persistent phenomenon that no nation on earth, I continue to say this, no nation on earth, irrespective of the technology at their disposal, can say that we have totally eradicated it. So now when you come to this law that I'm talking about, which is the DCA, it has categorized them under these categories that I talked about. We have the prohibited, we have the control, we have the precursors. They themselves actually are not drugs, but could be used to manufacture these drugs. So therefore, it is under control. That's why they are listed at the back of the Drug Control Act as schedules. You have Schedule 1 that deals with prohibited drugs. You have Schedule 2 that deals with controlled drugs. Schedule 3 continues with controlled drug. Then you have Schedule 4 that has precursor materials and chemicals. We will explain all this in the course of our discussion. So definitely, if you look at this discussion, it means that it's very wide. Even the medicines that we take to cure certain ailments, these are also drugs. They are medicinal drugs. But at the same time also, we know that these things are not just taken like that. Because there are indications to what they cure, and there are also contraindications. Indicating that there are certain conditions, if you have them,
you should not take this specific kind of drugs. So that's at a broader level. To limit it coming down to what we do now, I talked about prohibited and controlled. This is what we talk about to say licit and illicit drugs. When we say licit, it means that the law allows it, but it is under control. That's why you see the word even controlled drugs. Meaning, its usage and distribution is allowed, but there are restrictions. There are governing principles that are guiding how it is to be used, how it is to be dispensed, and how it is to be distributed. And the people who are even involved in that process. This could be drugs that are used to cure certain ailments. Like, for example, there are people who are psychotic, having some of these conditions. So these drugs could be given to them. So that's why the Act says that if a controlled drug is found with any person without prescription from a certified medical practitioner, it shall be deemed to be in your possession for something that is contrary to what is prohibited. That is, you are having it for you to either abuse or misuse it. You have the prohibited drugs. The prohibited, as far as the law is concerned, not under any circumstance. Again, laws, there are exceptions. Because when you say this, people, those who understand the Act can bring in some other provisions that are there. But what we're talking about, irrespective of the assumption, the perception, the belief that you have, as far as the laws of the Gambia is concerned, as far as the DC is concerned, no one is allowed to have it for usage, for distribution, or for whatsoever purpose. That's why you see, initially I said, for matters connected therewith. And that's why sometimes you talk about drug-related offenses. It might not directly be the offense with regards to possession, but it might be an offense that is related to that. So now, that's why we say prohibited, in a sense that not under any circumstance. Among these, you could have the cocaine, you could have the heroin, you could have those that fall under that different category. Now, looking at them from these two different categories, as we said, that although they are drugs, curing ailment, preventing diseases, the control is allowed, but there are laws that are governing how it should be used and dispensed. Yes. The prohibited, not under any different categories. And we know that these two drugs that we're talking about, you could have those that are the stimulant, the depressant, the perturbators, or the hallucinogens. Now, as initially, you remember in my earlier submission, I said these drugs affect what? The central nervous system. Simply for us to understand, when you talk about the stimulant, these are those drugs that when you take it, it accelerates the functions of the central nervous system. That's why you see some people, they will say, oh, when this person takes this, it becomes very energetic.
Yeah, that's even bringing me to my next question. That is the types of drugs we have in this country. What are the types of the illicit drugs that we have in this country, and what exactly do they do to the human body?
As I said initially, they are in different categories.
Yeah.
Right? And also it's important when we do these discussions, we make it clear. That is a broader definition. Drugs are used to cure ailments. But even with that, we have to bring it down because this is a show for students. And as such, it's targeting different categories of students. Those at the ECD level, perhaps, who may hear about the program from their parent, or parent might draw their children to listen to it because it's an educational forum. Those are the early childhood level. Those are the primary level. Those are in different categories. So we come to the middle. So that when they're hearing, when we say, okay, it's curing this, then okay, it means it's good. It is. But drugs are not just taken like that. They are dispensed. That's why you have a field that people specialize in. They go for a very long period of training. In fact, I think medicine has some of the highest level of requirement with regards to admission at university level or higher educational level, either it being colleges and the like. The period of study is very long, sometimes 7 years, 8 years, maybe a minimum period, depending on whether you're doing part-time or full-time. Now, you don't just take medicines like that. We say it's curing diseases. But you know, this is a country where if you do a random sampling by yourself, some people don't even know their blood group.
Yeah.
We don't go to the hospital. When we are sick, what do? We go to the pharmacy And when we go to the pharmacy, we will even prescribe medications for ourselves.
That's the bigger problem of it.
So, and these drugs have chemicals. There are compositions, chemical compositions in them. As I said, for example, there are some medicines that if you have asthma, you are an asthmatic patient, you should not take them. If you're a lady, you are seeing your period, you might not take them. If you're somebody who has high blood pressure, you might not take them. Because the contraindication, that is contrary to what it should cure, if you take it with those underlying conditions, the repercussion could be severe. It can lead to even death. So in as much as we're saying that they're curing diseases, it's important that the young ones draw their attention to that it does not mean because Sediba has said that it cures diseases, you can just meet a medication like that, you take it. No. And this is why even you see medicines, even sometimes inscription is written, keep out of the reach of children.
Yeah. So,
right? So, yes.
Yeah, so when we talk about these medicines, a lot of them cure, right? But now let's come to these narcotic drugs, these illicit drugs. If you are to go to the general public, some of them would tell you cannabis, cocaine. These are some of the things that they know. But what are some other drugs that are there in this country? Illicit drugs.
Good. This is why I'm drawing public perception. Because most of the time, when we go to forum, people tell us about what people are saying. But now, most of these people, how many have had the time to look at the Drug Control Act? Or have even seen it? One. Two, how many have background knowledge and expertise in this area? So this is why we try to bring public perception to understand that our mandate is not only on illicit drugs. It's both licit and illicit. Now, with the licit, you have Medicines Control Agency that handle things that have to do with like the paracetamol, the way that you buy, and other over-the-counter drugs. But things that have to do with prescription drugs that are controlled drugs, we equally have mandate on them. So this is why I was laying that foundation so that we can go into the discussion. Now, as I said, we are not only mandated by law to abate illicit drugs, but we also have a mandate to abate or bridle controlled drugs as well, which are the licit drugs. But as I said, not those over-the-counter drugs like paracetamol and others. There is another body that is called the Medicines Control Agency that has a mandate with that. And when we look at this, if we want to limit ourselves to what is provided for in the DCA, it might not give a clear picture. Because there are other substances, psychoactive substances, that we may not have the mandate to abate, or we don't have the mandate to control, but they are also linked or correlated to these drugs. Because you have a study that we call the gateway hypothesis, where people start from one and enter to the other. So coming back to your question, the type of drugs that we have in this country and the most common drugs that are there, as I said, you have controlled and prohibited drugs. Within our mandate, you have cannabis. And cannabis accounts for the majority of our seizure and trafficking related cases. And that's not just Gambia, that is across Africa, right? You also have the presence of, when you talk about even the cannabis, there are different strains of cannabis. There are different varieties of cannabis. Initially, when you talk about cannabis in the Gambia, you only expect to find the cannabis sativa, which Nyamo, we say, we locally grow here. But today, there is the presence of, we also what we call cannabis resin, others call it hashish. It's a process or a byproduct of that cannabis itself that is sometimes is a bit bulky, right? Among that also there is a specific variety of it that comes from Morocco. That although it's hashish, because Morocco is a very large producer of it, we call it the Moroccan hash. There is also another type that is called cannabis rudelaris, which is called skunk, which was not readily available and common in the Gambia, but it's also now in the market. It is synthetic type in the sense that it's cultivated inside a house with the use of heavy-duty light. These are some of the different categories when we talk about the cannabis that are regularly arrested or available in the Gambia. Why? Many factors are responsible. We will get to that. Also, there is the presence and seizure of what we call also cocaine. But here, people have to understand that the average Gambian cannot afford to buy a pure high-graded cocaine. In most instances, what will happen is to abuse the processed version of it that we call crack cocaine. Because if you're talking of a gram of cocaine, pure high graded, being $1,500 to $1,000, I'm not talking of the crack, the adulterated version of it. How many people? And this is just a dose that you understand. And how you use it, the length at which you use it, the period at which you use it, to a greater extent depend on your lifestyle, where you hang around, accessibility, affordability, and many other factors. So 1,500. How many can afford to spend 7 to 8 to 12,000 in a day? If you're talking about a key which is like $1.5 million, a gram, moving, as I said, depending on how it's adulterated in the market, but the average price is around that. I'm not talking of the crack. The crack you can get at any other price. You have also the presence of heroin that are arrested, but mostly also at not very significant level. There is also the presence of controlled drugs like diazepam, clonazepam, lorazepam, bromazepam, methamphetamine, some will abbreviate it for met, are also arrested. But the drug that is trying to put all those aside that is very common now, some call it the gao, is the ecstasy. Yeah. That is highly potent, highly addictive, and can cause severe mental disruption to individual. And these drugs are abused by different gender, not only the male. You know, initially I talked about this, the cannabis resin called the hashes. And now, this is why I say if I limit myself to what is our mandate, we will not get the big picture. Shisha smoking, it's not under our mandate. Right? Yeah. But the people who abuse the shisha and these joints that are available, they prefer to use the hashes.
Yeah, we will talk about shisha itself in a moment.
Yeah, so I'm just, because if I talk about it, it has to come. This is why I'm saying, how do we balance it? Because some of these things are not under our mandate. But if you are addressing what is affecting our mandate, or how we work, or what is related to it, or in narcotic, what we call analysis of the trend analysis regarding the abuse, regarding the usage, and regarding the trafficking, you cannot isolate it to this. Otherwise, you don't get the better picture. And if a better picture is not understood, the response capacity might not address the problem. Decision making, first of all, is to diagnose the problem. My head is paining me. There are 20,000 reasons why my head could be paining me. It does not just mean take. So basically, to summarize it, there are the presence of controlled drugs and prohibited drugs. But with the prohibited drugs, you have the cannabis, you have the heroin, you have the cocaine. The cocaine, again, as I said, you have the crack cocaine. The cannabis, you have different strains. And you have different varieties of controlled drugs. And the problem with these controlled drugs is there are no laboratory standards. The chemical composition of these drugs are not known. The dosage with regard to how you distribute it is not known, because those who are doing it are not chemists. They are not trained in those areas. What they are interested in is, how do I make this my specific drug more potent? When I say here potent, how does it give that high level of euphoria? Because when these drugs are taken, the brain is a very complex thing. There is a pleasure point. There is the release of what we call dopamine. When you do things that are pleasurable to you, that you are happy, the release of that dopamine is what makes you, feel very comfortable in it, get attached to it, and feel very nice. And these drugs, in the long run, in using them, mimic the production of those chemicals. And in the long run, this is why you see somebody will start from using to abusing, misusing, and then getting addicted as tolerance comes in. But these are all concepts that we'll also clarify.
Yes, let's talk about many students across the country, ranging from junior school, senior school, colleges, and even universities, are now taking to drugs, if not to say they are already hooked onto drugs. Why are students taking to drugs?
With regards to the statistics, I do not readily have or see the study that has been conducted in that area, but I do know that we affect arrest regarding students. You go to our page, NACO Mag on Facebook, regularly you can see the update. Sometimes we indicate their age and we indicate their occupation. And the agency has been aware about this. And this is why the agency set up what we call the Child Welfare, Gender, and Human Rights Unit. Because this student, as you've given the composition, starting from a very early age, some who are at high school level might be below the age of 18. So as such, they are termed and classified as ACO, alleged child offenders. You cannot process them as you process adults. And there's the Children Act, there are children court. The minimal age for criminal liability in the country, if I'm not forgetting, should be 12 years. So if you are above 12, but many don't know this. Coming to why, there are many, many factors. A human being is a very complex being, but it's also a social being. These kids that are in these schools come from homes, come from communities. And to a greater extent, when they are born within this environment, they start to see things. So one factor could be availability, even within the home environment.
Yes. That's a lot, because you see a lot of parents themselves taking drugs.
Look, you see, as I was talking about this, because we are proceeding, we might not come to it. I talked about the shisha. The alcohol will come, and the cigarette will come. The child is there. We know that you should not sell to somebody below the age of 18. You should not send a child to go and buy a cigarette. But what happens in our homes? Well, we send our kids to go and buy this cigarette. By all definition and standard, it might not be under our control, but it's a drug. And it's also addictive. And it's also causing harm. And as I said, there's a study done in Egypt that we call the gateway hypothesis, showing that some will start from cigarette and will graduate and migrate to other types of drugs. So availability in an environment. To a greater extent, when someone finds himself in an environment where drugs are readily available, readily acceptable, highly used, there is a great likelihood, ceteris paribus, all factors remaining constant, that that individual might end up using it. Because that availability in that environment also has a tie to what we call sociocultural norms. If at the home, insulting is normal, it's regarded to be normal, I grow up insulting. And I will meet with you, I'm insulting, it's not a problem to me because that's my norm and the way I am brought up.
Yeah, I even saw a scenario where a father would send his child to buy drugs and they will spend together smoking drugs.
I will go
Cannabis.
to all that. I even have real case scenarios that have happened in some schools regarding this other area. I'm just trying to dissect some of these things because we have a very limited stage by stage. Because me, usually people will say, okay, you don't go straight to the question. You see, these things are not just clear cut. And the way people take addressing drug problem and the way it is not the same. I remember when some of us left the classroom, some of our friends were telling us, don't worry, our drug problem is just to go and arrest people and put them behind bars. It's beyond that. Terrorism is being fought every area. But why? The nations with the most advanced technology and everything cannot still fight or bridle or eradicate drugs. In fact, you see the word we use in abating drug, they tell you a balanced, integrated, multi-sectorial approach between supply suppression and drug demand. They don't say eradicate supply, they say supply suppression. Because this, you are talking about issues that affect your own child, your cousin, your brother, your that friend. And remember, most time people are very selfish. Huh? When it involves his brother or sister, we must lock him up. If it involves my brother, what do we do? That selfish nature is there in most people. So therefore, people think it's only about arresting. It is not about only arresting. That's why they tell you balanced approach between supply suppression and drug demand reduction. Supply suppression deals with the interdiction and legal processes. That is, they tell you those who are trafficking, those who are dealing, there's a lot of money. Let me tell you this, drug is the most lucrative form of illicit trade. It has always primarily been the predicate crime to money laundering. There's the aspect of demand reduction. This has to do with prevention, treatment and care, harm reduction, alternative livelihood. If I am addicted to drugs, mile 2 is not the solution for me. This is why they tell you DDR, you balance these two. Those who are addicted to the drug, it should be seen to be a health problem that they need access to treatment. So it's not only about arresting. But coming back to what we were saying, what are some of these factors? that are responsible. Government has a responsibility to play within the streets. But inside our homes, there could be regulations, but it will be very difficult. And this is why I believe when you go to our religious settings, there is where the difference come in. That you say, الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who fear their God unseen, that is in a place where there is nobody. If you just threaten people with the law, and if they find themselves in areas where there is no law, they will abuse it. But if you capacitate them, give them the right information, give them the adequate information, build their strength and resolve, especially these children, for them to know that you can make it in life without drugs. Because the drugs will be available. So now, this sociocultural norm that I was talking about, you find yourself in a home or in a house where it's readily available. There is a greater likelihood that you perceive it and see it to be good. There are schools, this will come to what are we doing. We have drug-free clubs in school, we have go for sensitization, but let me just bring this case there. There's this particular school, we went there to book appointment for one of our outreach. And the principal said, oh, very timely. It's even very timely that you guys came. And narrated this incident that just weeks back, you know, when they sit somewhere like cannabis in the raining season, the seed drop there, you know, it will germinate.
Exactly.
Said there was cannabis going somewhere where these boys used to sit. I've been passing there, I used to drive these boys away from there. But one day, this girl, female student, called the attention of a specific teacher. You know, students will have a teacher that they are always very close to. That Mr. Sediba, it's not Sediba, it's just a narration of a scenario. That Mr., don't you know that what is growing in that place there is cannabis? Good observation. But what amazed and astonished the principal was, I've been passing this place every day, but I myself don't know that this is cannabis. I just think that is the weed that are just growing there. And the girl was interrogated. How did you know? He said, my father sells it and I do help him to scissor it and package it. This is a real scenario. There is a scenario here of a child or student who has been arrested in a specific school with 14 kilograms of cannabis and some tablets of diazepam. Because what happened is, you see the home again. We always have to look at this connection. They will fool and deceive them that you are a student. Naturally, when you see a student, you are standing at a checkpoint, you are doing a profiling, you are in a hurry to help the student, right? Because this one is going to school. So what they do is, perhaps this child, the father cannot even give this child $50. Cannot give this girl 70. You see, this is why I said again, connected to building their capacity and understanding that there is a brighter future, which may not be now. Your lunch, father struggles to give you lunch. Someone calls you and says, take $1,000, put this thing in the bag and take it. So you see how inducement comes in. So these are some of the other factors. I don't know whether you want to interject before we proceed, because I'm still looking at the factors.
Yes, because we have limited time.
Okay,
so
let's just summarize it.
Yeah.
You have psychological related factors. Some will tell you stress. Some will tell you that, although that's not the reality. It's just peer group influence. It's very important. It's key. Sometimes, when I was teaching at Gambia High School, I used to remember when I was in charge of I was the deputy head of the commerce department, and then I was also in charge of the afternoon with Mr. Smith. Kids will do things. Their parents will come, and you talk to them. They will tell you that, this is not that my child at home. Because they are now living dual life. They're even having personality disorder. What they are at home, what they present at home before their parents, and what they manifest at school are two different things. So sometimes also some of the other factors could be what? Peer group influence. Thirdly, fourthly, fifthly, we must be very careful to what we expose our kids to. Imagine recently that case of 13 years, 15 years, and 16 years trying to smuggle drugs, cannabis, and some controlled medications into Mile 2 Central Prison. It's on the page. And interesting, the concealment method is this body lotion, bought the body lotion, tied the rods that they were supposed to distribute into their friends there, some of this cannabis hashes, cannabis resin, wrapped it, tied it, and sealed it again in the body lotion. The week that happened, we we are reporting that in Basse again. And look at the age range. We're telling you between 13 to 17. In Basse, this soap that is there's this local soap that they had this cannabis, put it in the middle, wrapped it, and tried to give it to some of their friends who were arrested on theft-related charges. You go to our page on Nagomak, you will see that story there. So you see, these are some of the other factors that we also need to be careful. Remember, there was an incident that happened in Brikama Bay, I think, also. A child who was playing with the other child and just took a knife and stabbed the friend. Yeah. So we expose them. We watch these movies. We are not very careful of the age limitation. It's indicated clearly 18 years above, 16 years above, 14 years above. There is sex, violence, nudity, SVN. We don't pay attention to that. And we don't understand that these people at this stage, their brain is not matured enough for them to process these things well. So in as much as we're talking about this, we need to interrogate these factors to understand that our environment needs to be clean and healthy for our children. We have to be careful of what we do before them, because there are schools of thought in psychology that shows the human being is a social being and learns and see things and believes and then practice it. Also, peer group influence is also very key. The kids have to be very careful as to who they choose as their friends. Birds of the same feather flock together. Some will say, okay, if we leave them, how will they be? I used to tell her, yes, it's good, but you need to be strong yourself. If you cannot swim, you don't just see somebody drowning in water and then you jump to say you're going to save that person. You end up drowning yourself.
Yes, that is this scenario. I was speaking to a lady. She was also one time a drug addict. She was taking these ecstasy pills. And she was telling me that a lot of people who take these drugs, these ecstasy pills, are from rich families. And like the narrative, the local narrative, where people would say it is this stress that pushes people into drugs, this frustration of poverty, of having not being able to get the things that you need, that push a lot of people into drugs. What exactly do you think is pushing these rich kids into drugs who have all their basic needs at their disposal?
Anyway, that's a naturalistic observation. It's an isolated case. But I do know that there are studies that are clearly indicating that. You see, like when I was starting nature, I told you we will not go into that. That's factors depending on the physiological setup, biological setup, genetic makeup of the person. A specific drug can be a stimulant to me and become a depressant. Similarly, in drug, there is no one size fit all. One scenario could happen here, be the factor for this, is different somewhere else. In some places, when you go, like Africa, we know that lady has told you, but we know that many people also will tell you that poverty and stress is putting them into drug. We know that we have that scenario. Is that not so? Go to the Middle East, you find that there is so much money available, so much leisure activity that they don't even know what to do, and they get themselves involved. These drugs that I'm telling you that are transiting through Africa and they can be sold for 30,000 euro, take them to Europe 40,000 euro for a kilo. You take it to the Middle East, especially Qatar and other, it's 60,000 euro for a kilo. So sometimes money itself could be a factor. But I want to agree that it's always seated at my brother's shop at Churchistan. And I know what I see. That's why I said, we're not talking about studies, we're talking about naturalistic observation. And those of us who are from poor neighborhood are seeing what are happening there. But regard to whether it is rich family, it is poor family, people have to be very careful.
Yes, so would it be poor parental guidance? Because you would see some parents, they would give little time to their children, to the point that their children would get depressed, they don't even know what to do, and they would turn to drugs.
This is why I was saying, people have to be very careful. I was just coming to what you were saying. That is, either it being a rich family or a poor family. Because for drugs, when you are into it, as Kofi Annan once said, it has no respect for your political, social class, religious affiliation. Once you get into it, it damages you along the way. Sometimes if you come to the rich aspect, rich even itself, subjective to definition, because I have had cases where there is a boy who has been taken from here all the way to the States. He went and got him, he was into drugs. You see, this is why I said, these things are not easy. We take time for people to understand. When you are here, you are using it. You find yourself in another environment. The tolerance has come in. You know, when you take drug, your system becomes tolerant, and you have to increase it. And when you don't take it, you experience what we call withdrawal symptom. And once that withdrawal symptom is there, you need to take something. If you now find yourself in an environment, what you are taking is not there, you have to use something different. This boy was taken from here, from a well-off family, all the way to America. He had to leave his course and come back. He's one of the few people I once who was telling me that cannabis make me mellow. I couldn't understand what was that mellow. There is a recent scenario also. Someone who all the way to Canada, and the person had to come back. But alhamdulillah, when the person was introduced to us, I engaged him. He's back at the university, and I even transferred his credit. So that is there. The poor also is there. So when I say people have to be careful, when we are bringing up kids, life, anything can happen. You could be well off. We've seen this when we were growing up, even in Sierra Leone. Everything is there today. Tomorrow sickness comes in, death comes in, anything can come in. And if that child don't have access to that money, it's not only drugs. This is what pushed them to stealing, robbery, house breaking, a lot of other things. So I believe, like you are saying, irrespective of whether it's a rich background, it's a poor background, we have to be very careful to what we expose our kids to what we give our kids to the type of concept and belief that we put in their mind. Because they will grow up, they will have other friends, and these friends can also influence them and influence what they do.
Yes, let's talk about the psychological impact, the health impact, security-wise, that this drug consumption have on our students, on the youths, and on the society, as well as on our national development.
And hence we are running on time.
Yes.
Just like with brief one, then you look at the psychology. As I said, well-being, health is physical, mental, and social. And this the drug. The primary, I said, affection of it is what? It's on the mind. And you see, you can be addicted to drug once you are not necessarily psychotic. This is why we use the DSM, that is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, to diagnose people with this condition. Or you use the ICD, developed by the WHO, International Classification of Diseases. And then you have the DSM that is developed by the American Psychiatric Association. That is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. There are things that we look for. So among these things is one, it moves you from your pleasurable activities that you enjoy. Drug is very jealous. Once you get into it, it moves you out. 2, on their education. Once it's not affected your mind, if you have not even become psychotic, you are now addicted to it, you have to move away from lessons to go and get your dose. And also, not that, it affects your social interaction between you, your family, and your friends. So you can see you end up becoming either a social misfit. Now there will be issues, there will be stealing, there will be house breaking. As I talk about some of these things that are happening, all those things can come into play. And when these things come into play, you become a disappointment to your parents. And now there is also the morbidity, co-occurring mental and medical disorders. Some of these drugs, by taking them, there are some, perhaps, like for example, you have in your family, you have a condition that the drug is just coming to trigger and it come up. Perhaps you have a health complication that you now bring in smoke into your system. What other complication can it lead to? You come and take a specific kind of drug that the indication is not okay with your own body setup, with your own medical condition. They bring other in. So you can see it brings even financial burden. And if this has happened, the family is not able to take care of this, what will happen? It will have an implication of some of them involving into violent crimes. Some of them under the influence of these drugs, road traffic accident, hit somebody and destroy somebody's life for nothing. And these are even students. You know, we have areas where they go around doing, 360 or whatever they call them. And not all of them might be into drug, but it's a reckless behavior. And it can result in the loss of life. We've seen accidents that are caused by youth, school-going children that parents have given access to, had access to vehicle, destroyed the life and the future of somebody else there. And when these things happen, they go into stealing, housebreaking, and the like. It has a ramification to what? On the security situation in the country. And then when this happens, there will be a lot of stabbing among themselves. There will be a lot of murder among themselves. There will be issues relating to even them and their family members. And with this, they become easy preying ground for recruiters who may want to recruit them into crimes. So in this, you can see we're bringing together the implication and the impact on the individual, on his immediate family member, and on the society. Equally on his own health, on his education, because these are students. I have seen students who come in grade 10. Even I remember when I was in Ethiopia in 2014 there. Very well, behaving well, get themselves in the wrong mix-up, what happened? Boom. You cannot understand. And the parents are surprised. Some of them were from very good families, but today, what happened? They are from so-called wealthy homes. When you go there, they become what? A burden and a dependent on their family members and on the society. And they will do things, and then you feel that this one is from a very wealthy family. But what is happening? Because drug is something that is beyond just money. The money could be there, but then if the treatment services are not there. Rather unfortunately, Gambia, we don't have any specialized drug treatment facility. So this is why we'll tell our youth, the best that we can tell them is drugs will always be available. Some will say, why do you say that? That's true. There will always be people who will be interested in economics, demand and supply. As long as there is a demand, suppliers will be available. As long as there is a supply, depending on factors influencing the demand, people will come in for it. So therefore, we have to build the capacity of our young people for them to understand that they can make it in life without drugs.
Yes, I know the Drug Law Enforcement Agency is doing a lot to help curtail the drug consumption and trafficking in this country. But summarily, can you explain to us some of the things that you are doing as an institution to help bring awareness among students about these negative effects of drugs?
So as I said, we are working on the two fronts because solving the world drug problem, these are the three key components. Supply suppression, demand reduction, international cooperation, and even at local level. When we go to schools, one key thing that we did is usually we go to schools, talk to the students in the assembly, and go. But that's not sufficient. It's not a prevention. In professional drug prevention, we have a program that is called a professional training program. The minimum entry requirement is a master's degree, but Gambia, alhamdulillah, we're able to convince them, even those that have diplomas and their HTCs and their first degrees undertook this program. That's the Universal Treatment Curriculum, also referred to as the International Standard in Drug Treatment. We also have the Universal Prevention Curriculum. The thing that is there is, we go to the assembly, but that is not sufficient. There is plans to introduce it into the school curriculum. But I'm always very careful about this, taking from existence the failure of the FLE. Because when you put things in education and then they have to write, how many students know that you have to jog and it's important for your health? But I'm only interested in the pass mark so that I get my grade. So this is why what we did a survey and analyze programs and activities that have existed and remain in schools forever. Peer Health, Nova Scotia was very key. We engaged them. We went for a visit, learned from them, their practices and how they do that, how practice. We also went to Red Cross and also engaged them. We met with their director there and spoke. These were some the lessons we learned from them. We used to set up what we call drug-free clubs in schools. So added to the programs that we are having these drug-free clubs in schools where the coordinators and students are being trained on this universal prevention curriculum. There is a curriculum on what we call school-based drug prevention curriculum. So we are doing that at school level. On a weekly basis, we are going to the schools, talking to the students. We have radio program allocated for only them. They can come there and then talk to them. We organize these trainings, and also we try to reach out to the parents. But then the bottom line is, we cannot do it alone. If we say that we can do it alone, it's a big deception. That's why I said there is a need for a balanced, integrated, multi-sectoral approach. Rather unfortunately, in other countries, these prevention initiatives that we are doing, we should not be doing it. They are saying that for law enforcement, that is supply suppression, we should take the lead. For treatment and care, health should take the lead. For prevention, CSO, youth-based organizations should take the lead. Because there are some section of society, whether I like it, I don't like it, as law enforcement, you are not appealing to them. It depends. You see, there are two institutions globally that are not recognized and will not be appreciated. Anti-corruption commissions and anti-narcotic agencies. So that's why we are calling on others. Tell me one CSO that is in this country that is advocating creating awareness on issues relating to drugs. Or are drugs not a problem for us? Or are we saying only arrest can solve the problem? That is not the case. So I'm sure we are running out of time, but there is one important area that we need to bring out. That is the abuse of these alcoholic-related beverages. Energy drinks that have high level of vodka, some up to 18 to 20%. Because you have to understand how these youth are abusing these things. Cannabis is not the problem for these people today. Perhaps it cannot even make some of them high. You will see youth, this ecstasy that you are talking about, that's why you don't go to any type of program now and just see Wonjo, you drink it. You will see youth buying those energy drinks that has taurine, has caffeine, has vodka. You take ecstasy medication and put it inside that. You have your cigarette, you have your cannabis, you have your manis, mix it, calling it cocoa in somebody. Some even go and buy gin, dried raw gin. We used to call it in Sierra Leone Pega Park. There was a time it was banned here.
Yeah, I remember.
You go and buy that dry gin that should be diluted. Drinking that raw, damaging your liver. And these are young boys that should have been in school. So we must draw attention to some of these things. And these are people who don't even have proper food to eat. When you go to this shop, the only thing we go and buy is bread and pompiter. The day we put bread and egg is a problem. So we don't hate them. They can become anything. And why I'm saying this is because those young kids that this program is targeting are seeing them. And might think that it is okay, it is nice, it is not. Let them value their future and know that they can make it in life without drugs.
Yes, as we are running out of time, so that we'll be able to cover all the questions here, but let's talk about the legal implications that are involved when one is caught drugs. When one is caught with drugs, for example, cannabis, cocaine, heroin, what are the legal implications?
The penalty is huge. For cannabis, for example, let me take that as because the one that is regularly available. If you are not a first-time offender, you are found with anything below 2 kilograms. 2 kilograms above is deemed to be trafficking. Below, in fact, even that global level, how can you say somebody possesses for personal usage 1.5 kilogram or 1.9? Anything that is below 2 kilograms, if you are not a first-time offender, is $250,000 or imprisonment to 3 years, or both fine and imprisonment. If you are a first-time offender, because we notice that a lot of youth are being arrested, this is why we push for amendment of Section 35 of the Drug Control Act for first-time offenders and for cannabis only. Depending on what you are arrested with, from 0 gram to around 50 grams, the fine was reduced to $25,000, $50,000, 75, going depending, all under that 35 amended. It's from 0.01 to up to 50 grams. 50 grams to 100 grams. Now it moved from 25 to 50,000 to 75,000 going onwards. Right now the act is being overhauled. What we are trying to introduce is community services for first-time offenders and for only cannabis. If it is that now, that possession, depending on even whether it's controlled drug and others, is $250,000. If it is trafficking above 2 kilograms, it is $1 million and a mandatory jail term of 10 years. Meaning, even if you pay the 1 million, 10 years is there for you. In default, another 5 years. This is why if you go to mile 2, before I come here, I was typing the seizure statistics for 2019 so that I can share it with the media. Majority of the admission cases there is drug related. You go to Tanka, it's the same thing. If you don't enter into it, you will not understand. Also, it's not limited to that. Section 35(2) has said that where a prohibited or controlled drug is found in any place occupied by more than 2 persons, it shall be deemed to be in their joint possession. The onus lies on them to prove otherwise. It's very simple. If we are here now, the boys are left in my office. They've never entered here. If something is missing here, does it make sense for you to go after them? You see, when laws are made, there are things that they are trying to address. Laws are to protect people. Those who come into conflict of the law are the ones who see it otherwise. That provision is giving chance for the investigators to conduct their investigation. There is also offense relating to permitting, saying that somebody who is concerned in the management of a premise from section 40 to 41 should not allow or falter any of the following activities to take place: using or abusing a drug, permitting people to use a drug there. If it happened there, it shall deem to be that it happened there by your permission unless you prove otherwise. There is the forfeiture of means of conveyance. Many people have lost their properties, their cars. It's deemed that whenever a particular means of conveyance, either it being a vehicle, aeroplane, car, any type is used to traffic a drug from one point to another, it shall be deemed to have been done for the purpose of trafficking, and there is a likelihood for it to be forfeited to the state, pursuant to section 94 of the DCA. 94(2) says that the person who owns that, like for example, I am a driver. We've had those cases. There is a specific bank that hired a driver. Luckily for them, they do background check on you. Come in, take a claim, they train you. He went to drop money and decided to take cannabis along the way. But in the case, when the forfeiture time came, the bank came in, they brought all out. We don't employ him to go and do this. In fact, even have a form that he signed. The court looked at the matter and the car was returned to them. But otherwise, there's the likelihood that it will be forfeited to the state. And also, like those boys who don't smoke and go and sit in those places, Section 35(2) is clear. And then there's also the provision to indicate that you should not frequent a place that is used to abusing drugs. So, but basically on the aspect of possession, these are the provisions that are there. If you are a first-time offender, the fines are different depending on the quantity. 25,000 going. But if you are not a first-time offender, caught for possession is $250,000. If it is trafficking, it is $1 million and a mandatory jail term of 10 years.
Okay.
Remove 10 years from you.
Your life is gone. So, is there any place in the country where it is legal to smoke or to take drugs or to traffic drugs?
As I said initially, as far as the laws of the Gambia is concerned, it's none. It's people abusing.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason I ask this question is because we see nightclubs and football fields when there are tournaments. People will publicly take drugs, and you hardly see arrests in those cases.
No, arrests have been taking place. There have been a lot of confrontation, if you've been following some of those areas, resulting to even our officers sustaining damages to our vehicles, sustaining injuries. Some have been stabbed, except if somebody is not following them. Even recently, over the last weekend, there is an incident in Basse that resulted to the damage of the windscreen of our vehicle. In fact, one of the suspects who was even in custody was assaulted by those other people thinking that he's a narcotic officer. Go to Narcomag and you see the picture. So it's not that it's not taking place. But as I said, you see, this is a collective responsibility. If we take the responsibility and put it in the hands of only law enforcement, we will not have a solution to this problem. This was why when these stands of this, I don't know whether they call them independent stands in football fields, came up, what we did is we invite some of these coaches and football team, and I think even the national sport, we have a program that we're about to roll out again, to invite them. Because even they themselves is a concern for them, because most of the fight that comes up in these places is coming from those people. And because they will have bet, they will not even see the goal, and they will be arguing. And when issue come up, they create commotion. So that's the thing. And one thing that is sad now is that when they are going to some of these places, they will give it to the guards to take it in for them. Or some will come and plant it somewhere before the match. And remember the strength that you are coming in. There is a match that is ongoing. If you want to effect an arrest in that particular place, it results to commotion. Nightclub and other places, we've issued several warnings. I was part of the team that when they were invited, we identify some of these places, call them and warn them. But the teams do go there. But then again, this is what we're saying. Until and unless when examples are set, some of those places are shut down and some of these people are prosecuted. Then you will see, because people have effrontery to even go to the extent of advertise, organizing a program where you are abusing drugs. So this is a collective responsibility. It's not only in the hands of law. And as far as we are concerned, let me make this very clear. There is nowhere and no one who is allowed to do this. But then again, in as much as we are talking about democracy, right of individuals, we have to try to raise these people their level of understanding to that. Right comes with responsibility. It is not just infinite. My right to freedom of speech does not mean I should insult you. My right to freedom of movement does not mean that I should enter your bedroom. Every right, there are limitations, and it comes with responsibility. So therefore, it's a collective effort for us to educate and sensitize our people.
Yes. What role can we as a society, as educators in schools, play in ensuring that the Gambia and our learning institutions are drug-free?
Primarily, let's create conducive environment for them. Let's talk to these kids about these issues. We should not see it as a taboo not to talk to it about them, not to talk about it with them, because whether we talk about it, we don't talk about it, they see these things. They see people doing these things, and they believe that this is right. So therefore, let us do our own part. As I said, it's a balanced, you see the word, integrated, multi-sectorial approach. Drugs do not exist in isolation. You cannot curb it in isolation. Name me one issue here, I'll try and bring the connection with drugs. Whether it be in economic activity, whether it be in sport, whether it be in irregular migration, whether it be in trade, rape, accident, it does not exist in isolation and cannot be curbed in isolation. Let us go back to the drawing board and rethink and understand that abating drugs, solving the world drug problem goes beyond arrest. there is the need for prevention, treatment and care, harm reduction, alternative livelihood. But most importantly, you see, we say that the first step to recovery is to accept that there is a problem. If I don't see there is a problem, you cannot give solution to it. That is our youth. They themselves, we need to talk to them, for them to value their future and understand that they can become anything tomorrow in the future. But it depends on the path that they put. Obama's father is from where? Kenya. He became the president of where? The United States. You think if he had turned to drugs, he would have been to that level? We were watching the TRRC, Dr. Sisi, on the Secretary for UN. From where? From Dobo, all the way in CRR. And many, many, many others. So let us build their capacity, their resilience, their understanding that they can make it in life without drugs. You don't need drugs for you to be seen as a big man, for you to be recognized, and for you to be respected. So we will talk to the educators, but we'll also talk to the target audience who are the youth, because irrespective of the information that these people give to them, the decision is with them for them to make the right choice.
Yes, finally, some would argue that punishment is not a good solution to drug consumption. How do we replace this?
I think I've said that in my presentation, that we need balanced, integrated, multi-sectorial approach. But remember, it's one thing to have good laws. It is something totally different to have the infrastructures that can help you realize those laws or the implementation of those laws. We have many good laws in Gambia. Gambia as a country, we don't have problem with laws. But when it comes to implementation, and that implementation goes to even discipline with regards to even the individuals, I will not even mince my word on that. Because there are many good laws. But some of these laws, individuals also have a responsibility. So we are saying that, yes, I'll give you an example. When we were amending Section 35 in 2014, there or thereabout, many were jubilating. Our objective was not for them to see it as an open field to abusing drugs, but to reduce those that are going. Today, if you introduce, you say, for first-time offenders, you introduce community service, as we are trying to do. You need probation officers. You need supervisors. You need psychologists. You need psychiatrists. You need a rehabilitation center. And all this involves what? Involves money. So how many people? I am telling you that any youth group, CSO, that is involved in preventing drug in this country, write to the agency for support. They write to others, they are not interested. So therefore, as a first step, I think everybody needs to get involved fast. Encourage those youth who are trying to prevent the drugs from going to those youth. Everybody is complaining about the problem. How many are part of the solutions to this problem? The problems are there. We are complaining about the problems. Talking about them will not solve the problem. We need to take practical solutions. And how do we take practical solutions? Is to ensure that we get involved. So the agency has a foresight. And we are aware that globally, you say, criminalize trafficking. Decriminalize with regard to the possession and usage. You remember I said it even in my own submission here. I'm a law enforcement officer. That somebody who is addicted to drug, taking him to mile 2 is not the solution. Didn't I say that? We are aware. But we don't just bring laws to please people. When laws come in, they have to be applicable and they have to be seen to be applied. Justice must be served and must be seen to be served. So therefore, let us all get involved. Let us just stop being complacent and be part of the solution to the problem. And two, how we can do this is to ensure that we support, most importantly, those youth groups that are engaged in keeping youth, children, and drugs apart.
Very well. We've run completely out of time, but I would give you a chance to give a message to the students who are watching right now.
Thank you very much. All what I can say is they are the future. There is no Gambia without them. They will keep on telling that, people will say we are the future, we are the future. How are we the future? I was young. You were young. You are here today. You progress beyond this age. That is life. Allah says, anybody that we allow to grow will take you to the age where you were. So that is a reality. And even those who did insurance, we say assurance is hinges on what? A possibility. Insurance is on probability, but assurance is on what? Is on possibility. Something that must come to happen. And that is like aging. So they will grow. But when they grow, where they will be, depend on the path that they take. The Lord is good. He has always been good. You do good, good will follow you. You don't plant mango here and you expect to come and harvest guava. That cannot be possible. How you make your bed, so shall you lie on it. Nothing good comes easy. Let them be patient. Let them stick to their books. Let them be very careful of the things that they see in movies and they try to bring it in their life. Your life is not a movie. And if it's going to be a movie beside the Almighty, try to be the director. If the Almighty is the director, you try to be the producer. So be very careful of what they do and let them understand that they are the future. And the Gambia, he said, if you want to see Gambia tomorrow, don't look at those who are in position today. Look at those who are to take up those positions tomorrow. If they are good, there is a possibility that most of these things that we are seeing there will change. So therefore, we love them, we value them, and we believe and are scared that without them, there is no Gambia tomorrow. Thank you.
Without them, there is no Gambia tomorrow. Those are the words of the Communication Officer of Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the Gambia. That's where we're going to draw the curtains today. Till I come your way next week, I am Lamin El Sayang. You are watching the Academic Forum here on Better Future Production.